Hello, CompuMove friends. Welcome to a CompuMove training video. What we have for you today is a look at CompuMove's claims management functions. First, we'll take a look at the claims setup screen. We'll look at creating and linking a claim vendor payable account. We'll look at claim event types for notes and tasks. And we'll look at damage codes for insurance and management reporting. Once we've looked at that setup and understand what's there, we're going to start a claim record for a shipment. We're going to start a claim from within a job. We're going to look at the triggered events, and we're going to make an event memo. Next, we'll create individual claim items. We'll enter their descriptions. We'll enter damage information and inventory information. We'll look at claimed and approved dollar amounts, and we'll do a claim cost allocation. Finally, we'll look at how this claim appears in CompuMove. We'll look at the job record, we'll look in the claim list, we'll look at a claims report that analyzes the elapsed time calculations, and we'll look at allocated expense and contractor charges. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. The first thing we want to do is look at some settings for claims setup so that we'll be able to proceed. Now, one of the things that's at the finish line of claims management is actually issuing a claim refund check to someone. And so that means that ultimately we're going to be creating a vendor payable and we're going to want to be able to issue it to a particular shipper. So in order to do that, we use a dedicated vendor account for claims. So what I'm going to do is go to Setup and I'm going to go to Vendor Accounts. And if you look in this Accounts Payable vendor group that I have here, you can see that there exists a vendor account that says Claims Payable. Now it's in there with all the other vendor accounts for our recurring vendors, but it's got a special status. If I double click into that Claim Payable and you look at the vendor status, it's in the one-time vendor group. And that's because we don't want to make new vendor accounts for everybody who we've ever issued a claim check to, because then we'd wind up with a huge list and we'd have to wade through it. So because we don't want that, we're going to set up ultimately claim payable items in this one-time type vendor account. And then there's going to be one record in there for each person, and then it's just going to live in there in a segregated place, and we won't be wading through it in our major vendor list. So that account exists now in my setup. So I'm going to go to the work system and we're going to go to claims. And we open up the claims system. This is where a list of claim items are going to be. But we're going to go to claims setups down here and take a look at what's there. So we hit the button for claims setup. And the first place we land is on these vendor and general ledger code assignments. So you can see here, that's where that one-time vendor style claims payable vendor account is. And also I've got dedicated expense accounts. In this case, I've got 8,700 as a claim expense account. I don't have any more. In fact, you can have up to 10 different defined expense accounts. So if you wanted to keep separate track of interstate claims or storage claims or military order claims or local move claims, you could actually have those expense accounts, link into them here, and then you'd be able to use them within the claim item allocation. The next tab up is event types. This is for the event management system, and there's two classes of event types. There's notes and there's tasks. Either one of them can hold notes, but the tasks are designed to be run sequentially and they are triggered. So you can see here that the claim started task will be created when the claim will be generated when the claim is created, and then as we toggle through the various stages of the claims, each one triggered the next in turn. So this is a sample list that we have in front of us here. You can modify this as you wish. You can add to follow your own workflow, but what it does is it creates an automatic date-driven prompt for the next thing that has to happen in the sequence of events in the life cycle of this claim. So the third tab here in claim setup is statuses and damage codes. We've got some reasonable statuses here. You're welcome to embellish them if you want. Particularly, it shows whether it's in open or closed status. So when we look at our overall list of claims, that's going to determine how that's included. And then here's a list of damage codes. And these will come out on the final claims report. So if you've got an insurance carrier that wants you to classify damage according to codes, you can give them a code, you can give them a title, select it on the claim item, and then that will come out in the wash in the final claims management report. So let's close this out and let's get started doing a claim record. So we're going to start doing this claim record from within the job. Now you can actually go to the claim system and say you want to start a new claim and navigate through the job lookup and find a job, but it's probably easier to just do it from within the job, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to open up our Roger Jones shipment, and we're going to go to the Claims and Costs tab, which is down here on the left-hand side. And that's going to give us the opportunity to start a new claim. So I'll go there, and you can see if there's multiple claims on a shipment, they will appear here. There's also related information about the valuation that's in play on this shipment, the deductible and so on, just to have it at hand. And then down below, you can also see job expense costs. Now, we're going to allocate a cost to this shipment for this claim, but it's worth noting that you can allocate any kind of cost to a shipment, not just claims, but that's a subject for another video, so we're not going to go any farther than that right now. So I'm going to click on the New Claim button, and what it's going to do is open up the claims management screen for this shipment, and it wants to know, do I want to create this claim with the sequence of claim events that are set up in the claim area setup? So let me move this job out of the way just to make the field a little clearer. And so let's go ahead and say yes to this question. And so what that's going to do is it's going to create the sequence of triggered events, the ones it can do based on what's happened so far, it's going to. So therefore, the claim started, that happened, and you can see that the system says I've got 5 days. Now that's obviously just a configured value to get a form out to the client. So when I go into the claim list and start looking at it, it's going to be in nag mode with me for this shipment. Tomorrow it's going to say 4 days. The day after that it's going to say 3 days. And then at some point it'll turn red and start yelling at me if I haven't done it, because I need to get that claim form out to the shipper. And then once I do that, then the next item in sequence will kick in. So if I wanted to make a memo regarding this, I could click into this event and I could come down here and I could say, spoke with shipper, will send form, or something like that. So obviously this gives us a place where we can keep track of our conversations that we have with people, and then serve as a permanent record for what happened. So I'll go ahead and say save in progress. And so now we've got a memo on that line item, and then this will just continue as the workflow moves on. So let's take a look at the next thing, and that is claim items. And so this is where we enter the item or items that they've filed a claim for. So very possibly they will be multiple items, and so we approach them individually and then they sum up to the total for the claim. So I'm going to say add item, and I land in the claim item edit field. Couple things to look at. This is where we describe the item in general. This is where we describe all the various damage. And so there's really two parts of it. The claimed damage description, that's what the shipper has described it to us as. Then down here we have a place to record the information that we find on our inventories. We've got a place for the original value inventory, for a warehouse rider, for a destination rider. So we capture that important information to guide us as we go on, continue to work the claim. Then down below we have the financial tab, where they're going to enter a claimed amount. We've got the ability to capture some information regarding what did it cost, how long have they had it, replacement or repair cost. Those are potentially valuable numbers, and they do show on the final report. But what we're really interested in the end is how much are we going to authorize. And then finally, how is that going to be allocated? Is this a company expense? Was this an independent contractor? Is it shared in some way? And that's an important thing for the final financial reckoning. So let's go ahead and do it. So let's say that this is a sofa, and I'll just make up a fake value for an inventory tab. And then this item status, when we start, certainly going to be open. So here's the claim damage description. I can pull down the combo list and get the standard claim code. So suppose I go scratched, and then I'll go ahead and say scratched left leg. And then this is where I can choose from the list of damage codes that I entered in the setup area so that it'll ultimately show up on my claims report. And then if I wish, I can associate this with a specific work event, and I can also tell it, is this a packing claim or not a packing claim, or even in a PBO box. So the next three fields are where I can enter information off the original inventory. So if the driver said scratch left leg and scratch top, or I've got a warehouse rider description, I still have the list of choices I can pull from, but I can basically enter anything I want in these fields. So we've gathered that information when it comes time to argue about this claim. So suppose they're claiming $250. So we've got fields to keep track of the original cost, when did they require it. That actually really mostly just drives the reporting. What we're mostly interested in, how much are we going to authorize when all is said and done. So if I click that button, it'll drop in the full amount of authorization, but let's say that we've allocated $100 for a repair cost, and I'll just leave it at that. So then the next and final question for this is, how is this being allocated? Who's responsible for it? So let's take a look at a couple possibilities. I'm going to click the Add button, and I'm going to pull down the list. And you can see I've got an expense item. So let's say in this example that this scratched leg is going to be taken as a 100% company expense, no other allocation. If that's the case, then I'm done. I'll go ahead and hit save. So now I've got one item, claim 250, authorized 100, a sofa, allocated to claim expense $100. Let's add another item, and let's just make it a little more complicated. Let's share the allocation. So I'm going to go ahead and do an inventory number. I'm going to say it's got water damage. Damage code is going to be cargo loss. It's associated with that work event. We're going to say damaged. It might be appropriate. They're asking for $500. Looks like we've destroyed the whole thing, so I'm going to go with the $500. But then when I allocate it, I'm going to split it. So I'm going to say add, and I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to say claim expense. But we're going to share the cost of this with our independent contractor. So I'm going to take 50%. Now you can tell that it warns me that I'm under allocated by highlighting it. So we haven't yet distributed the full $500. So I'm going to go back to the list, and I'm going to pick my independent contractor, say Walt O'Reilly, and I'm going to do the other 50% with him. So now we've got $250 going to company expense and $250 going to be passed through to a contractor, like any other chargeback to his account that'll ultimately get charged to him on a future settlement. So if I hit save item, now I've got two items with a split allocation. Now if I look at the claim financial history, you can see how it sums up. That I've got two items allocated to claim expense for a total of $350. I've got one item allocated to my independent contractor for a total of $250. I've got that in a particular expense period. And so now when I post this, it's going to aggregate it and flush it through. One thing that's not happened is that this claim is not yet approved for payment, because this is going to appear as a payable item to this individual at this address. So I might still be in the process of getting this claim together, and so I don't want to say that it should be approved for payment. I don't want it to pop up on the open payables list for a check run, because we're not there yet. When the time comes, we'll check that box. But otherwise, we're going to let this ride as it stands, and we're going to just go ahead and save it, and we'll have a completed live claim record at that point. So now let's take a look at how this claim appears in CompuMove. First, I'm going to go to the work system and I'm going to go to claims, and you can see now in the claims list that record exists. There's a variety of functions here to help us manage it. Let's take a look. In particular, there's a date range function. You can see under due events, it shows no due events. But if I advance the time counter forward, say to the end of next week, so that I encompass whatever the time range is for the thing that's pending next, you can see now it shows me on 9/6, 5 days from theoretical today, this is due. So it'll start turning yellow if I get negative numbers, meaning it's overdue, but it allows me to set a cutoff, look at what's due, and then have obviously a date stamp reminder. The other aspect of this is that I can have this claim be assigned to a particular user in my organization. So if I have one person who handles local move claims and another person who handles military job claims or something like that, I can segregate those into separate buckets. So if I go into this claim record, then in the center here is where we can pick from a user account. So I'm going to go ahead and say John is the owner of this claim record. I'll save it. So now when I'm looking at this claims list, I can pull the list down. I can see John's claims, or I can see Dave's claims. Dave doesn't have any. So it allows me to focus just on the things I'm interested in. The other thing I can do is I've got the division filter. So between the date cutoff and the user and the division filter, you can really have segregated control of claims within your organization, even if it's a large one. And then the last thing I can do here is toggle the statuses. I can say, show me all the open ones, show me all the closed ones, or show me something that's in a particular status, like the new records, and then it will show me that. So then, of course, I can click into that record and look at the claim detail and be on my way. But let's take a look at it from the other side. Let's take a look at it from the job record. So I'm going to close that out. I'm going to close the claim list. I'm going to go back to the work. I'm going to do lookup. This person's name is Jones. It's that first local move there. We're going to open that record, and then we're going to look at the claim detail. So now when I'm in this job record and I go to the claim tab, then you can see there's my claim record right there. I didn't enter a reference number. That's a number of your own creation. Obviously, we enter a claim key number, but if you're dealing with somebody like Cardis or the military or somebody like that, where they might generate a claim reference number of their own that they want you to have and reference, then that's where that goes. The other thing we can see here is that of the $600 that was authorized and allocated, $350 we took as our company expense, and then the balance was charged against our independent contractor. So from here, I can just click into this record and it will open the claim manager. Or should I get another claim, a follow-on, I could hit the new claim button and start another one and then carry forward with the life cycle of that. So then the last thing we want to look at is what happens in terms of the reporting. And so there's a particular screen here that we did not deal with, and it starts to become important, particularly when you're in the national account world, and that's these date ranges. These accounts, Cardis and those other companies, are very big on how many days has it been, and you've got a contractual obligation from the time the loss is reported until you make the contact, and then until you receive the claim form, and ultimately you settle it and close it, and they want you reporting on that stuff. And you get a score, of course. So if we were to say the date of loss was August 26 and the first contact took place September 1, I guess we could put a future date forward, but you get the idea of how this works. So then when we run the report, it's going to organize that and show those dates, because we are responsible for reporting to them how we performed so that they could then give us our score. So we'll go ahead and save that. We'll get out of this job record, and then we're going to go to the report screen and we're going to go to the claim screen. And this is where you can see where that date report option comes in. We can pick a starting date, and then it'll age forward and show us in different columns how we're doing according to that performance. So I'll just go ahead and say September 1. There's various levels of detail. We'll just accept it the way it is and we'll display it. And then it shows us we've got a claim record. It shows us its status. At this point, you can see it has not been paid, so it's in the due category. And of course, it shows us the job status and the job reference information as well. If I close that out and then come back here and say, give me the date reporting version, then I get a different look where it shows the loss date, the contact date, and then the number of days with an aggregate average down at the bottom, which is what they want you to report to them. Now, of course, everybody probably wants that in Excel, so just like all other CompuMove forms, there's this export clip button. If you're not familiar with export clipping CompuMove reports, watch that video. It's very informative and certainly very helpful when you want to go sharing things with the outside world. So then the final piece of this is, okay, we did those two allocations. Where did they go? So if we go to, for example, Move Books, and then we go to General Ledger Accounts, we come all the way down to Claim Expense. If we look in our income period and we click into that detail, you can see that we had two line items that are in there. That was a settlement we did on a previous video where we took a contractor allocation as a van line settlement and assigned it to claims. But here we've got the claim item that we created out of the claim system for that job, and it shows its status, shows whether it's been paid. If a check is ultimately issued for it, we're going to be able to look at that. And then the other place we can look is we can go back to Move Books. We can go into commissioned accounts. We can go into Walter O'Reilly's claims account, and now there's a claim item in there. So that's a negative item to him. If he had a commission on this job or some other claims, maybe he's a hauler, independent contractor, then those will show as positive items. In this case, this is a negative item to be deducted in full or in part from a future settlement. Now, actually doing those settlements is, again, a subject of another video, but what we've done is through claim allocation, we've brought ourselves up to this point where we've now got an item in his account, it's pending future settlement, and it's flowed seamlessly from the original claim that's been created. So the final piece of this, from the financial side, would be issuing a check to a shipper. But at this point, that's exactly like settling any other open vendor payable. So we're going to stop here for this video and let you watch that in a different one. If you've got any questions regarding how the claims management is done, how the setup takes place, how things are managed in terms of the financial allocation or the note keeping or the triggered events, please reach out to our office. We're always happy to help, and thanks for watching.